Hello there, and welcome to episode 19. I can't believe we're at 19 already. Episode 19 of the No Reservations podcast. And this one is titled Seasonal Sizzle, crafting seasonal menus for maximum impact. Okay. I kind of love this one because it's super easy. This is not rocket science at all, but sometimes it really helps to have just another angle or even just a reminder about the marketing value there is when we're talking about seasonality in your restaurant or in a lot of businesses. And so where do I go when I think of seasonal, or hopefully where you go to, maybe when you think of seasonal? Pumpkin, especially if it's fall, right? September, October, everything pumpkin spice. You know what I'm talking about. There's pumpkin everywhere. It's definitely overkill, right? But there's a reason why it's everywhere. It's popular. It's going to gain traction. So, in whatever type of business you have, a cafe, a coffee shop, a restaurant, of course, if you can implement pumpkin in any way, um, it's going to sell. It's not going to sell to everyone, but it's going to sell. And because they're in season, and the same will be said for apples, and I'm going to get to that in a second, especially here in New England, but I would assume that's, a large part of the US, right? When you think of the fall season, you're going to think of pumpkin, apples, things like that. They're in season, so therefore, presumably, you can get them for less money because they're in abundance, right? They don't have to ship them up here from Florida or over from California or built or, raised in a greenhouse. They are everywhere. Here, certainly here in New England, they are everywhere. So that presumably drops the price down. So it makes sense to actually have these on your menu. So hey, there's the marketing value of it because everyone's talking about, ooh, it's fall. I love this time of year, the leaves, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you're really not going to find a person who's not going to say that. An adult anyway. Usually it's not going to say that. Most kids love fall too. And then secondly, you should be able to get these ingredients at a really good price because they are in abundance. Okay. So I don't really, I'm still not going to tell you how to design your menu or what to make. Obviously that's you, whether it's going to be a drink, a coffee, a dessert, however you want to incorporate seasonality into your menus. It makes perfect sense to do so based on the reasons I just gave. But in addition to that, especially here up in New England or even in the Northeast corridor, right? When it comes to apples, we have orchards everywhere. And it's definitely it's like an annual family outing, if you will, where you can take hay rides and you can pick pumpkins, and of course you can go pick apples after apples after apples. And if you're anything like me, when my kids were small, I used to take them every single year. Everyone kind of has their favorite orchard they want to go to that offers, different entertainment and things like that. So the apple cider donuts. Oh my God, those are so good. What was I saying about that? Oh, so no matter the kids, everyone looks forward to it. You want to go, and then you go and you pick apples because that's an activity that you only get to do maybe once a year, right? And then you pick a ton of apples because it's fun to look for the good ones, and you take them all home, and then you end up probably throwing out half of them. I know that is certainly the case in my house, sadly, because we're just overall not apple eaters. We mostly went because that's the thing to do around here. But with that said, you can make some apple pies and apple crisp to a point before it just gets crazy. But when it comes to restaurants, cafes, things like that, when it comes to apples, like there is a lot you can do with them, which you already know. I am not a chef, so I don't need to teach you that. But here's the marketing value in that. It is even just using your iPhone, film the orchard, film you, your family, you and your partner, you by yourself, however you want to do it, but film the activity that you're doing at the orchard. Then, you could do a film of, your hoard, like, the apples or whatever, the pumpkins, whatever you bought. Then you can film how you're going to prep them. And if you do these small short videos, if you don't already have one, there is so much software out there where you can just like upload these videos and it'll make the captioned TikTok or reel for you, We just started using one called Veed, Veed, which does a really good job. Literally, you can just throw some videos at it and it like picks and pulls from it, slices and dices, and it creates it for you. And it's not always perfect the first time, but you can certainly edit it. But most of the time, it kind of hits the nail on the head. And then I was learning about others. I'm sure you can Google them. Reading an article yesterday on others that do an even better job, especially if you're focusing on TikTok, of doing this. So you don't have to be the expert in, videography to do this, but I highly recommend doing the filming from each part of this activity, from the orchard itself to the bags you collected, to the prepping of the apples, to, the baking dish, they go in the oven, and then to the final dish, what you'd be serving your customer. Cause I'm actually picturing this. My mouth is watering in my head as I think about this, because a really good apple crisp is generally not something that you see or order all year long. It's definitely a fall thing. And I would say that people even kind of crave it in the fall, like a beautiful golden crusted apple crisp, hot with some vanilla ice cream, some cinnamon on it, like literally nothing better on a cool fall day. And I'd find it hard that anyone would disagree with me. So if you can film that process and then at the end show the finished product of a beautiful baked apple crisp with the vanilla ice cream and, a garnish on there that just takes your breath away. Like, that is how you can get people in the door. It reminds them that it's fall. It reminds them of the flavors, and then their mouth will just drool over that. And the cost on that is going to be fantastic because, again, they're in season. You should be able to, I know the prices of everything have gone up, and I'm sure the orchards are no different. But if you get so many of them, you're going to be able to make money because, you could still probably charge $10, $12 for that dessert, and it probably costs you 2 or 3. And that's a pretty decent markup. So that's just one area. I know that there is also a way you can make them into cocktails, garnishes. You could slice and do dried apples for garnishes on savory entrees, more desserts. Pumpkin everywhere. You really cannot go wrong with pumpkin. Let's face it. Every single coffee shop that is going to have the pumpkin spice latte. If you serve lattes in your restaurant, then I would certainly recommend you have a pumpkin syrup that you use and just highlight it as a special. And that is a great hand sell for your customers. So if you can train your staff and maybe even run a contest to kind of get them, push them a little bit forward and like, hey, sell this new pumpkin latte that we're going to do, then you can get the customers to buy in. And these could be customers that weren't planning on staying for coffee or dessert, because I don't really see a lot of people doing that very often anymore. But I also don't see a lot of suggestive selling around it either. So I think this is a perfect opportunity when people are saying, oh, they're done with their entrees, you clear their plates and they're ready for dessert. They're ready to leave. They're ready for the check, because most people are bypassing dessert. You could say, okay, great, bring you the check. I just want to let you know we are running this amazing special on a pumpkin latte, and you talk it to town about the pumpkin. You boiled and pureed it. You're roasted and pureed it yourself and made it into a puree that you then add in however you want to kind of do it, just to make it a nice hand sell. And then when you serve it, maybe you have a special cup, maybe not. I'd go to town with the whipped cream and some, maybe like a nice caramel crunch on top of that whipped cream. It's the visual of it is pretty huge. I think that is a terrific hand sell, and you can upsell it by $1 or $2 because of the pumpkin. That's a win-win-win all the way around. It's just a great special to get out there. Now you have the customers staying for a drink or a coffee at the end. Maybe they'll grab a dessert. Maybe you can upsell them on your apple crisp. Just a great way to add some more dollars to that check average. So you absolutely want to do that. Now, the other thing I want to mention, so that was a low-hanging fruit, pardon the pun, on talking about seasonality, right? It's just the pumpkins, the apples, the easy. But again, in the fall and winter, stews, roasted meats, like that's when people are kind of really craving that savory type of meat that is cooked in that way. And usually those also are the inexpensive cuts of meat, right? So they could be the rump roast, whatever, that you're just going to throw in the oven for a very long time and let it slow cook to break it down so it becomes a very nice tender piece of meat. So and then serve it in a stew or some other creative way you can do that. So it's a great opportunity to be able to use inexpensive items that are much harder to sell in the summertime where no one really wants to sit down with a heavy stew or a heavy meat dish, but you can do it in the fall and winter all day long. As a matter of fact, I'd say we crave that and crave those flavors and still be able to charge a good amount of money for them and have a very low food cost. So, um, while we're in season, and let's face it, fall's a pretty short season. Winter is longer, but fall's a short season. Now is the time to capitalize on this, on using those lower cost items. They're a little bit harder to get guests to buy into buying throughout the year, but you can get them into buying it now while costs are low. You can still keep prices high, and work on that profit margin on getting it up that is probably a little bit more thin as other parts of the year. So that's a wrap. I know this is a shorter one. We're going to go on about 12 minutes here, but as you know, I like to give you bite-sized, just food for thought, so to speak. Ideas you may or may not want to use in your restaurant to try and be helpful. Please, 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 by all means, if you can, share this, talk about this. Like the podcast so that we can get it out further, and I will keep sharing ideas that come to me, and soon we'll be inviting guests on with us, and we'll be able to hear about their ideas as well. So thank you again so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic day and happy fall.